All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me this evening for the learning of Parashat Hashavua, Parashat Vayigash. It's a great honor to be here in the Ariel home. Thank you very much to Mr. and Mrs. Ariel for hosting us tonight. Chazaku Baruch. Tonight's shiur is Leilui Nishmat Yitzchak ben Mashiach. May his neshama go higher and higher in Gan Eden. May it be a militz Yosef for the family, for the community, and all of Am Yisrael. Be'ezrat Hashem. Thank you very much. So we begin Parashat Vayigash. I'll just start off with a little chidush that I saw from the Apter of the Ohev Israel. He says something interesting which I never paid attention to. He says the pasuk starts off. We're starting off the parasha in the middle of the 3-week saga of the story of Yosef and how he was sold and how he was kidnapped and the whole story with Potiphar and how now he's finally, after having come out and taken out of jail, he now becomes second to the king, and he does the whole story with the brothers, accuses them of being spies, and they have to go back and bring Binyamin. Then he frames Binyamin, and he says Binyamin has to be my slave, and he cannot leave. Now Yehuda goes ahead and is making his final plea to Yosef. He doesn't know it's Yosef, but he's making his final plea to Yosef. And he's in a situation where he really is going to lose his not only Olam Hazeh, but also Olam Haba. Because he told Yaakov Avinu, he said, if I don't bring him back, if I don't bring Binyamin back to you, to my dear father Yaakov, so then I will have sinned to you not only in this world, but also in the world to come. So I'm losing everything. He really is going to lose everything. So that's a very devastating thing. So he has no choice but to try everything that he can. And he's trying diplomacy. He's starting to talk now nicely to Yosef. And he's also, Rashi tells us at the same time, threatening him. And he's telling him, listen, if you don't give me back my brother, I'm going to kill you just like I'm going to kill the whole place. I don't mind dying myself. I would rather go down trying than actually going back empty-handed. I would literally prefer to die. So this is the conversation that the parasha starts off with. Now the words are, I've never noticed this till this week. Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi Adoni. So Yehuda approaches Yosef and he says to him, Bi Adoni. It's interesting to note that the words Vayigash, Vav is what in Gematria? 6. Elav is what? Starts with Aleph, is 1. Yehuda is 10. So what is that?
17.
Right? So 6, 17, plus another Vav, 6, 23, plus B, it's 2, so 25, plus Aleph, 26. What's 26? Shem Havaya, Yud Ke Vav Ke. So says the Aptarav over here, you see that Yehuda is employing a very important tactic that we should all know about, which is that even when a person is in a dire situation, which is what Yehuda was in, but at that very moment, he decided to attach himself as best as he could to Hashem, to Yud Ke Vav Ke, to Hashem, to say, Hashem, I don't know what's going on over here. I have no idea what's happening. I don't know why we were framed. We were accused of being spies. I don't get what's happening over here. I don't understand why this is going on and how come we left. We had our money returned to our pockets. We came back. They told us that he stole the cup. He didn't steal the cup. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. But one thing I know, Hashem, you see everything that's happening over here. I'm attaching myself to you, and everything's going to work out.
What word was that from?
From all of these things, Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi Adoni. The first letter of each one of those words gives you a sum total of 26. Yud Ke Vav Ke. Which this is what Chazal tell us. Chazal tell us from Chizkiyahu, says that Hashem was very upset at the king Chizkiyahu that he didn't have children. And the reason that he didn't have children was because he saw that he's going to have a son named Menashe that's going to be the most wicked man ever. He's going to kill 1,000 Jews a day. He's going to put an idol in the temple. He's going to do the worst of the worst things. So he said, I don't want to have a child. So Yeshayahu, the prophet, came to him and said, Hashem is going to kill you. You have now been stricken with a disease. You are going to die. He said, What? He says, why? Yeah, what are you doing? Not having children. You're supposed to have children. So it says that.
He was not even married.
Yeah. So this is Chizkiyahu. He was supposed to get married to try have kids. So he said Chizkiyahu turned to the wall, starts to pray. Shai says, what are you praying for? I told you you're going to die. He says, I have a Kabbalah from Bet Avi Abba, from my father's father, who was David HaMelech, that afilu cherev chada munachat al tzavaro shel adam, even if there's a sharp sword placed on the neck of a man, al yimna atzmu min rachamim. Never shy away from asking for mercy from Hashem. So Yehuda is in the worst of the worst situations right now. But what does he do? Attached to Yud Kei Vav Kei. Attaches himself straight up to Hashem. And surely enough, he had Siyata Dishmaya. Now, I want to jump to the most dramatic, probably one of the most dramatic scenes in the entire Torah, which is when Yosef reveals himself to the brothers. And he does it in a way that's extremely interesting. There are lots of details here that I would like to get into with all of you. So he says like this. At this point, they already give him the entire spiel. He says, how could I go back, Yehuda says, to my father? He loves Binyamin so much. He's the only son left of his beloved wife, Rachel. If I do this to him, he's going to suffer tremendously. There's no way I can leave here without Binyamin. And he gives him this long speech about how important it is to bring Binyamin back to Yaakov. If not, he says, how could I go back to my father? And the young man, Binyamin, by the way, young man, he already had 10 kids. It's interesting, he calls it a young man. But how could I go back to my father? And the young man, he's not with me. God forbid, don't want to see what's going to happen to my father if I come back without Binyamin. So Yosef can't hold it back anymore. He says, everybody get out. He starts to cry. Everybody hears what's happening in the room. They have their ears to the door on the outside probably. Now, Vayomer Yosef elechav, Yosef says to his fathers, Ani Yosef, I am Yosef. Ha'od avi chai, is my father still alive? Velo yachlu echav la'anot oto, ki nivhalu mipanav. His brothers couldn't answer him because they were scared. They were terrified from his face. So there's so much to say here, but let's just read the psukim first, then we'll move on. Vayomer Yosef elechav, Yosef says to his brothers, Geshuna elai, come close to me, come approach me. Vayigashu, and they came close to him. Vayomer ani Yosef achichem asher mechartem oti Mitzrayma. I am Yosef, your brother, that you sold me down to Mitzrayim. Ve'ata, and now al te'atzevu, don't be sad. Ve'al yichar beinechem, don't be upset. Ki mechartem oti hena, that you sold me here. Ki lemichya shelachani Elokim lifnechem, because Hashem sent me here in order to provide for all of you. That's the whole scene. It's a very dramatic scene in the Torah. Now, there are many questions and midrashim that I'd like to address in this give and take that just happened over here. The midrash tells us something very interesting. The midrash says that the brothers could not respond to Yosef because they were scared of him. They were scared. The midrash says the following: Amar Abba Kohen Bardela. There was a great rabbi. His name was Abba Kohen Bardela. Oy lanu miyom adin. He says, woe unto us from the day of judgment. Oy lanu miyom hatochecha. Woe unto us from the day of rebuke. What does that mean? Yosef, ktanan shel shvatim lo yachlu echav la'anot oto. Yosef was the smallest of the tribes, and his brothers were not able to respond to him. Ki nivhalu mipanav, because they were scared of him. So now, what's the nimshal? Lekesheyavo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Hashem comes, veyochiach lekol echad lefi ma shehu, and he will tell each person according to what he is. Shenemar uchichacha ve'ercha le'enecha, where it says in the Torah that I will rebuke you and I will set things up according to your eyes to show you what you have done, then in that case, alachat kama v'chama, how much more so we should be scared of that day of rebuke. Okay, that's the midrash. Did everyone hear the midrash clearly? Okay, so in other words, there's a simple idea here. Yosef says, here I am, I'm Yosef. Everyone's terrified. So if Hashem comes to us and says, Hashem says to each one, rebuke based on mashehu, what he is, how much more so we're going to be scared. So the Bet Halevi, Rabbi Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, says many questions here that I'd like to address. By the way, I don't know if you ever saw, there's a this rabbi that I'm just quoting now, he has a great, great, great grandson who's alive today, I believe. And he was at the White House with President Trump, and President Trump had a hard time pronouncing his last name. But but eventually he got it right. And he said, Soloveitchik. And his classes were very cute. Anyway, Rav Yosef Dov Levi Soloveitchik, the Beit HaLevi, asks many questions on this midrash. He says the following. He says, first of all, what was the great tochecha that happened here? What was the big rebuke? All Yosef said is, I am Yosef. Where is the great rebuke in that? That the midrash says, when Hashem comes and rebukes us, what rebuke did you? All he did was say, I am Yosef. Not really much more than that. They were shocked, but is that rebuke? That you understand the question? That's question number one. Question number two. It says, Oy lanu miyom adin, oy lanu miyom tochecha. Woe unto us from the day of judgment. Woe unto us from the day of rebuke. What's the difference between judgment and rebuke? That's question number two. Question number three, when the Midrash says, Yochiach lekol echad lefi ma shehu, Hashem will rebuke each person according to what he is. What does that mean, according to what he is? What does that Midrash mean? So the Beit HaLevi explains the answer to all these questions by asking another question. The other question is based on what he says. Ani Yosef, I am Yosef. Ha'od avi chai, is my father still alive? What is that question? They just told you 20 times that their father is still alive. There's no question that he's alive. What are you asking? It's not really a question because you know he's alive. So why are you asking the question? Clear? So what is the meaning of that? So he explains like this. He explains Yosef was listening to Yehuda's argument. What was the argument of Yehuda? Yehuda is saying, take me as a slave. You want to take somebody as a slave? Take me. I would do it. Take somebody else. But Binyamin, no way. Why? Because Binyamin is so dear and so precious to our father that if you take Binyamin, our father will suffer to no end. And I can't allow for that to happen. I can't let my father suffer. I can't do it. I can't go back like that. That was the argument of Yehuda. Yosef says, you're concerned about your father's suffering? Your father's suffering means something to you? Well, I have a question then. Ani Yosef. I am Yosef. Ha'od avi chai? Is my father still alive? Meaning, when you sold me, was he not my father too? What about the suffering when you sold me? How come you weren't concerned about the suffering of my father when you sold me as a slave? Where was the suffering of my father then? Basically, Ha'od avi chai is not asking if he's alive or not. He knows he's alive. The answer is that it's a question to tell the brothers, to tell Yehuda, here you are so worried about Yaakov's suffering because you won't have Binyamin. Why weren't you worried about Yaakov's suffering when you won't have Yosef? He's Avi too. He's also my father. And I'm also the son of Rachel. So where was the concern back then? Now, says the Beit HaLevi, we understand the questions that we asked on the Midrash before. Yom Adin and Yom HaTochecha are two separate things, which means the following. The way Hashem will judge all of us is exactly the way that Yosef played it with Yehuda. Meaning to say, Yosef is only using the same quote-unquote excuse that Yehuda is using against him. It's called minei ubei. Within himself, he's a self-contradiction. Here you are super concerned about Yaakov's suffering, but you were okay selling me, right? So Hashem judges us the same exact way. The Yom Adin is when the person after 120 gets accused of a certain Avera. The Beit HaLevi gives an example. He says, let's say, for example, somebody does not give tzedakah. He doesn't give tzedakah. He doesn't know how to stick his hand in his pocket and give. He just doesn't do it. Okay, fine. So after 120, on the Yom Adin, he gets asked, why didn't you give tzedakah? So he has a potential excuse. He can say, you know why I didn't give tzedakah? I have a family, Baruch Hashem. I had to provide for their needs. I had to pay this and I had to pay that, these expenses, those expenses. It was very challenging for me. So I couldn't allow myself to spend on other people. I had to spend on myself. So now the truth of the matter is that argument is not such a good argument because Chazal tell us, if somebody sees that his money is limited, take the money and give tzedakah. Because by you giving tzedakah, you're going to get more. Hashem will always send you. So the right attitude would be the opposite. You're short, give. It's counterintuitive. But okay, let's say that he doesn't go with that. We understand. It's not like he's a very wealthy guy who doesn't give tzedakah. He's got limited means and he's not giving because he's short. It's more understandable. But comes the Yom HaTochecha. Then comes the day of rebuke. Meaning, Hashem now turns to the guy and says, okay, we understand. More or less, we have it. It's not as bad. You didn't have much money. You couldn't give so much tzedakah. We get it. But wait a second. Every week, you had a date night with the missus where you spent minimum 500. You and her, that's it. You went out to this restaurant, that restaurant, 500 minimum. You bought season tickets to the Jets, right? You had, a cruise here, a trip to Italy there. You had this, you had that, you had all these different things. So here you are, Mr. I don't have the money. I'm short, I'm this, I'm that. But there's money for this and there's money for that. But when the appeal for the Sefer Torah campaign was knocking on the door, 36 for a letter, oops, sorry, it's tough for me, right? So that's the difference between Yom Adin and Yom HaTochecha. Yom Adin is the accusation. Hey, why didn't you give tzedakah? So there's a way to wiggle around it. But that excuse then is turned around by Hashem and worked against the person. Why? Because at the same time he's claiming poverty, he also spent here and there, etc. Right? Here's the guy, he says, I have to leave Shacharit early. He's got to leave early. He's got this, he's got that. And he wraps up his tefillin right at Ashrei, right after Chazrat HaShatz. You walk outside, 30 minutes he's schmoozing outside, right, with some other guy. Right? What happened? He's in a rush. I gotta go. But here, time for half an hour. Again, so the very excuse that he made is now circled around against him. So that's the Yom Hadin versus the Yom HaTochecha. So that's the answer, says the Bet HaLevi, between these two. And that's why the Midrash says, Lefi ma shehu, the judgment of Hashem on the person is based on his own standards that he sets. That's what it means, Lefi ma shehu. Hashem takes the very standards that you set forth in your life, the code that you live by, and Hashem then takes it and uses that very standard against you. So listen, you established that this is how it works. These are the rules. You don't have money, so you don't give tzedakah. Fine. But then why is there money for all these other things? You don't have time, you got to rush? Okay, fine. But why is there time to schmooze for half an hour? So that's the way that this works. So this is the Bet HaLevi's explanation. Beautiful, beautiful explanation from the Bet HaLevi. So in his words, I'll read it to you inside. He says, Hara she'asa, the bad which he did, he atzma, he musar v'tochecha la'avera acheret she'asita. That bad thing that the person did itself will now turn around and shed light on the other things that he's being accused of. So this is a very important understanding of really how the judgment works in Shamayim, which the Bet HaLevi says we see from Yosef HaTzadik and from his discussion with Yehuda. Now, there's something that I still, if you guys have an answer to this, I would like an explanation, but we're going to take this story in steps. But the next step has to do with something interesting. It says that Yosef made the Egyptians do a brit. Did you guys know that?
All of them?
Yosef made the Egyptians make a brit milah.
All of them?
Yeah. Now, here's the big question, right? Right? Here's the big question. Yosef made them do a brit milah. Why? What's the reason for that? I don't know. I'm looking for some explanation for that. No, the Rashi brings it in the end of last week's parasha.
Where does Rashi get it from?
I don't remember. I think it's a midrash.
But
Yeah.
I think it says because they didn't want their brothers to be embarrassed when they came to be segregated against or discriminated against for having been.
That's correct.
I just said you know the answer.
That's correct. You're reminding me. I believe I actually said that in one of the previous years. Maybe I said, yeah, that's a good answer. That what? That because he didn't want his brothers to be embarrassed when they came down. Thank you for that reminder. Beautiful.
Down their pants?
What? Yeah, no, because remember remember that bathhouses were public bathhouses. Bobby, Kazaku Baruch. Thank you for that. Bobby L'chaim for that. Thank you so much. I've been looking for an answer all day, and you're reminding me. I didn't know that at one point. Okay. Good. Good. So now, fine. He made them make a brit. Very good. So now there's an interesting question. They were shocked. Rashi says that they were so shocked. So nivhalu mipanav. Rashi says mipnei abusha. They were so embarrassed. So he says to them, Gishuna elai, come close to me. Now Rashi says, Ra'a otam nesogim le'achor. He saw them taken aback, literally taken aback, right? Amar achshav achai nichlamim. He says, now my brothers are being shamed. They're getting embarrassed. Kara lehem bilishon raka. So he called them with soft, in a soft tone, betachanonim, with like a merciful voice. V'hera'a lehem, and he shows them shehu mahul. He shows them that he has a brit. In other words, he kind of opens up over here, and he shows that he has a brit milah. Now again, in light of this, there's an interesting question, which is, if all the Egyptians have a brit already, so what's the big deal that you have a brit? Everybody else also has a brit. So that's an interesting question. So I saw a beautiful, I'm going to quote the Sfat Emet 2 times tonight. The Sfat Emet, the third Gerer Rebbe, says an interesting answer, which is important for us to understand. You see, Yosef wasn't just showing them that he has a circumcision. The other Egyptians might be circumcised, but they don't have a brit. What's the brit? The fact that Yosef was in control of his desires while he was in the spiritual dump known as Egypt, and he didn't allow himself to fail with Potiphar's wife. That brit that he showed them, which only tzaddikim, like the tribes of Israel, could see, they saw that there was incredible kedusha coming out of that brit. They saw it was very different than any other brit that was there. That's what the Sfat Emet explains, that they saw this was different than all other reproductive organs in Egypt. It was a special brit. And they saw that and they realized he's a tzaddik. And now the shame gets even worse, right? Because now they realize what they did to such a wonderful man. So here's the big question now. Rashi says, we just read a second ago, they called him to make him feel, he calls the brothers, Shuna Elai, come to me, like I'm your brother. I want to make you feel good. I don't want to embarrass you. I want you to come closer to me. So we understand he's coming to make them feel good and not upset. Okay, fine. Look what he does. Vayomer, and he says, Ani Yosef achichem, I am Yosef, your brother. Now that's a line that means I'm your brother still. I'm together with you. Look what he does now. Asher mechartem oti mitzrayma. That you sold me down to Egypt. What does that mean? I'm reminding you, you know what you did? You remember what you did? You took me while I was begging and screaming for my life, and you sold me to the wolves down in Egypt. So what is it? Asks the Sfat Emet. I heard this beautiful, beautiful word from Rabbi Yisachar friend quoting the Sfat Emet. He says, what is he doing? Is he comforting them? Is he bringing them close? Or is he pushing them away and saying, Asher mechartem oti mitzrayma, you sold me down to Egypt. You guys are the lowest of the low. Your own brother, this is what you do. Right? So what is it?
You're just trying to prove it's Yosef.
Oh, so that's a nice answer. You're saying very good. You're saying he's just trying to tell them, look, you know how I know it's me? How you know it's me? Because I know the story. You sold me. It's a nice answer. I like that answer a lot. Pashut, but very, very true. Beautiful. So he says a different answer, which I'm going to share with you, but I like that answer a lot. So he says like this. He says a very important idea. The brothers saw how holy Yosef was. They saw, like we said, the kedusha that was coming out of this man. The Sfat Emet in another place actually says, interesting, that Yosef had the ability to reveal his true form to his brothers, like a person puts on his clothing and takes off his clothing. To the Egyptians, he appeared like a simple guy. But to somebody who could see the essence of Yosef, he was a very, very holy, high spiritual level. So to his brothers, he revealed it. And that could very well mean what we talked about before, how he showed them his brit, meaning, look, I still have my high holy level. So now the brothers are saying to themselves, my God, we prevented the next head of the tribes from being the head of Am Yisrael. Can you imagine if in Egypt this is who he is? How much more so if he would have been together with Yaakov? We prevented that from happening. We lowered him down. We brought him down to a level that he could be. If this is what he accomplished here in Egypt, can you imagine what would have been if he was with Yaakov Avinu together, learning all the time? That was their fear. That was their concern, that they had caused a travesty in Am Yisrael, prevented the next head of all the tribes from being the leader. That was their concern. Says the Sfat Emet, an incredible chidush. Yosef HaTzadik tells them back, you got it all wrong. You have it all backwards. The only reason that I am who I am today, the only reason that I could show you the kedusha that I have and the incredible level that I went through, that I have, is only because you sold me down to Egypt. All that I am today is because of the fact that I went what I went through. And that built me up. And he says an interesting thing. It says in the Torah by when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchot, it says that these are the luchot asher shibarta. Hashem tells Moshe, you broke these luchot, you broke them, asher that shibarta, that you broke, that you smashed. So Chazal make a drasha, asher is like the word yashar, like yishar. So what is Hashem saying to Moshe Rabbeinu? Yishar koach sheshibarta et luchot. It was a good thing that you broke the luchot. Why? Because like this, there was no marriage contract, and therefore I don't have to destroy the Jewish people. You did a good thing, Moshe. Yishar koach. The word asher means yishar koach. Says the Sfat Emet, over here, Yosef is almost in a sense telling them, Yishar kochachem, asher mechartem oti mitzrayma. Good job that you sold me to Egypt. Interesting. Again, we can't say that. It's obviously the wrong thing to do. But Yosef, having experienced it himself, is telling me, you don't know what you did for me by sending me to Egypt. By you putting me through what you put me through, I built my spiritual muscles to a point where I am the man that I am today. I would never be who I am without what I went through. Abotai, this is a very important yesod, because what happens is, many times throughout life, we face challenges. And it's very important for us to understand that the challenges that we go through are like going to the gym, but a spiritual gym. It's where you tone those muscles. It's where you get chiseled spiritually. You're able to build yourself up because you're going through these challenges. This is what makes you the man that you ultimately will become on a spiritual level. And that's what Yosef was telling them. It's like Rabbi Friend was saying, there was one guy that he knows that had a Down syndrome child. And the guy told him, he said, if somebody, he says 17 years ago, his kid was 17, if somebody 17 years ago would tell me, listen, I'll take your child, just give me your house as a gift. He said, I would give my house. I would do anything to get rid of this kid. It was such a child. It was so hard, such a challenge to deal with this. He says, now, after 17 years, I would give my life for this child. He's the pride and joy of my life. I do anything for him. The challenge seems very, very difficult. It's very challenging. But that's what builds you. That's what makes you who you are. And one of the things that I think that we can we're kind of familiar with the concept. Those who come from immigrant families that were not born here, for example, they know what kind of challenges you go through when you come to this country. It's not easy. You have to start. It's a big challenge, and you have to build yourself and work. And And then we hand it over to our kids. They have no idea what you guys went through. No clue what it takes to go through what you guys went. No idea. It's just handed to them on a silver platter. And one of the most important things I think that we need for today is we have to be willing to face challenges. Today, a lot of times people, especially parents, they don't want their kids to go through any challenge. They want to plow the way clear for their kids. Nothing should disrupt them and interfere with their success. But part of life and building yourself up is going through those challenges in life and failing sometimes and becoming better and becoming stronger. He says, Rabbi Abraham J. Torsky was you guys know Rabbi Torsky? Rabbi Abraham J. Torsky was a very famous rabbi and psychiatrist actually, world-renowned psychiatrist. He saved many, many, many lives. Interesting story. He says one time he himself was visiting a doctor and he was in the doctor's office and there was, they have these magazines on the table. So he took a magazine and he says in the magazine, there was a discussion, there was an article about how lobsters grow. And it's an interesting discussion. It says the lobsters, what happens with them is that they start off really, really, really small. Then they grow into their shell, but then become so constrained, so tight, that they have to knock off the shell. They're in such a jam-packed situation, they have to break free of it. So they go to some spot where they're not in danger. They hide under a little rock or something. They break free of the shell, and then they grow into a new shell until that is also too constraining for them, and they have to pop that one off as well. So it turns out that the things that that force them to be in a tight situation actually is what's helping them to grow to the next level until they become a fully developed crab. It's an interesting life lesson. You wouldn't really, think much of it, but it's a life lesson. The things that make things hard on you actually help you to grow. So that's what Yosef was telling them. Yosef was telling them, you have it all wrong. This is exactly why I am who I am. And I think the last part that I want to just talk about with all of you is what was the ending that Yosef told them. Yosef now has a lesson, I think, for them. You see, we talked about life's challenges and how that makes you strong. Yosef and Yehuda, I believe, like we started off talking about before, Yosef is trying to teach the brothers, how did he manage to get through everything? You know how devastating that is to be betrayed by your own brothers? It's not some random guy competition in a business, or it's like your own family, your own brothers. You know how devastating that is? It's terrible. It's not just getting stabbed in the back, it's getting bazookaed in the back. It's like it's horrifying. And then not only that, you have to go, you're in some guy's house, some goy bought you, and you're a slave, and you're still doing everything that you're doing, always mentioning Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Be'ezrat Hashem, Yirtzeh Hashem. It says Shem Shamayim Shagur Befiv, because he always was mentioning Hashem. You know how hard that is to still be attached? You know how hard it is to resist temptation? The man was 18 years old, and this was the most beautiful woman on the planet. It's so challenging. And then he gets thrown in jail because he did the right thing. How is that not devastating? You did the right thing, and you're getting punished. Horrible. And then on top of that, not one, not two, 12 years in prison. How do you not break down? How do you not collapse? It's horrifying. Nobody should ever have to go through such a thing. How does somebody get through all of these challenges of life? So Yosef, I think, is giving us the answer when he says the following. He says, Ve'ata, al te'atzevu. Don't be sad. Ve'al yichar benechem. Don't be mad. Don't let your eyes get upset. Ki mechartem oti hena, that you sold me here. Ki, you want to know what happened over here? Lemichya shelachani Elokim lifnechem. Hashem sent me here in order to provide sustenance for all of us. In other words, what got me through all of this is one word. The whole time I had bitachon. I had faith and trust in Hashem. I trusted Hashem. I said, Hashem, I don't know why my brothers are selling me. I don't know what's gotten into them. They think I'm trying to kill them. They think I'm a bad person. All I was trying to do is help and help them to grow. I don't know why they did that to me. It's devastating, but I know that there's a reason. There's a plan. There's something that you are doing over here that I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know. And then why am I in jail? Even though I did the right thing? I don't know. I have no idea why I'm in jail. Even though I resisted temptation, I'm thrown here in jail. Why is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? When is it going to end? I don't know. I have no idea what's happening. It's 10 years. I finally get an opening. I talk to the butler. I tell him his dream. I interpret his dream for him. And okay, now maybe I'm going to get out. 2 more years. I don't know. I don't understand it. But ultimately, what I do know is that there is a master plan. There is something being orchestrated over here, which is by far beyond me. And it turns out that I was right. It turns out that by me being here, I single-handedly saved the entire country of Egypt. That means that I'm saving the entire world because everybody has to come here for food. And our family is included in that. So there was a master plan here, and I knew it all along. And that's what kept me going. And that should keep you going too, he tells his brothers. That's what you should remember. You think that it was all in your minds that you sold me to Egypt? There was a master plan here that overpowered all of us. And that's his comfort to them. He says, this was the plan all along. It's a very challenging thing to think about, but it is true. It's important for us to remember this detail. Did I tell you the story recently about the boy that was killed in a crash in Lakewood? No?
Fresh.
No? Never told you that story? It's just to illustrate. This is a different from a different class where my friend gave very nice idea, which is a very sad story, but I'll just share it with you briefly. He says, just to understand, there was a family in Lakewood that suffered a crazy tragedy. Tragedy was that their son or daughter, young daughter, was running outside in the street. A car came and hit this little kid, and the kid died. It was a terrible, terrible tragedy. And they're sitting Shiva, and they're inconsolable. It was a disaster. What? Yeah. When did I say this story?
A year ago.
Yeah, a year ago? Amazing. So he says the following. He says, look, all of a sudden this couple comes in to the Shiva, and they don't know who these people are. And the couple comes, sits down next to the mom and the dad, and they say, listen, you don't know us. We heard about your tragedy, and we want to tell you a story. And they say the following. They say, look, we were a Kiruv couple. We had intentions to go out to some community that doesn't have any Jewish resources, and we wanted to bring people closer to Judaism. We found some community that had lots of Jews, but no resources. We went out there, and we were on a mission to start to bring people closer to Yiddishkeit. That was our job. And we started to work there. And the first thing that we decided to do, the halakha says, before you even build a shul, the community must have a mikveh. Because how could people be married if there's no mikveh? They have to have access to a mikveh. So we begged, we pleaded, we knocked on doors, we were eating cereal for dinner. We didn't have anything, we were just scraping up money here and there, putting together whatever we could to build a simple but kosher mikveh. And finally, after years, they put together the money, after begging and pleading with people, they put together the money for a mikveh. Okay? They built the mikveh. Not only did they build it, they also maintained it, and they also ran it, and they did everything that they could to make sure the mikveh was running well. They had a baby, 2-year-old baby, that they would bring with them to the mikveh just to, while they were fixing everything and maintaining everything. And one time that they were there with the 2-year-old, they look around, all of a sudden they see he's nowhere to be found. They're calling him, they're looking for him. And surely enough, they look in the mikveh, and he's at the bottom of the mikveh. They pull him out, they try to resuscitate him. Very sadly, the child died. And here they said again the same exact thing. Zot Torah v'zot schara. This is the reward after all that we did to make Hashem happy, We built a mikveh. We did the best that we can in order to make Hashem happy. And we want to do the right thing. And this is the reward that we get. Devastating. And they were as well inconsolable. Short while thereafter, the father that night, well, not that night, but the father at one night has a dream. And in the dream, he sees his son. And his son starts to tell him, he says, Abba, don't worry about me. He says, what do you mean? He says, I lost you. He says, don't worry about me. I want to explain everything to you. He says, you see, my neshama was the neshama of a man who was killed in the Spanish Inquisition, al-Kiddush Hashem, for being Jewish. And that man's body never went through a proper tahara. It never received a proper tahara in a mikveh before being buried. So Hashem waited all these years for my neshama to come back to this world in order to receive not just any tahara, but a tahara in the most pure mikveh that would be built ever since the Spanish Inquisition. And that was your mikveh. Because you built that mikveh, I was able to come back and receive my tahara and get to the highest level in Gan Eden because of your mikveh. That's why I came back to this world, in order to receive that tahara. So the father told the other father while he was sitting Shiva, he says, you might not ever get a dream like that will explain anything to you. You might not ever know why this happened. But know one thing, there is a master plan. There is a reason. Yosef is telling his brothers the same thing. We don't know. I didn't know what was going on, why this is happening. But there is a master plan. And you should know this at this point as well. And Hashem wanted this so that we could all survive and we should create a nation, Klal Yisrael. And that's a chizuk for all of us. All of us go through different things. All of us go through challenges. We have to remember, number one, the challenges that we go through build us, make us stronger. Let's not give excuses. Let's not let the tochecha come back at us. Let's face the challenges head on. And Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, while doing so, while remembering that there is a master plan for everything, that will give us the chizuk to go through everything. I'm going to stop over here. Chazakim Bruchim. If we have any questions, now's a great time, guys. We'd love to hear from all of you.
If somebody's getting tzedakah when they don't have that much, don't they also risk potentially angering their partner? And we know that like having peace in the house is like the Shekhinah there. So aren't you potentially risking a much greater?
So you got to get a partner that wouldn't have that issue. But yes, you have to do things with Shalom Bayit, of course. True.
So King Hezekiah knew that he was going to have a wicked son.
Yeah.
Right? And he was such a righteous person. What?
But when you take that,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
But why did he take that or even more? Why would he not?
He killed thousands of Jews. He died in Benito.
Because he has a mitzvah. You don't have the right to not do your mitzvah.
And knowing that 20,000 Jews, 30,000 Jews.
It's not your responsibility. That's the point. It's not on you to know what will be the outcome of this action. You know that you have a mitzvah to do, and you have to do it. No calculations, because those calculations for Hashem. That's not for you. For some reason, Hashem wanted.
If you could prevent
that to
it,
happen.
if you could go and
That's not your
kill
concern.
Hitler right now, go back in time, you wouldn't do it.
Obviously, me with my limited understanding, I would do it. But the problem is that we don't have that option, first of all. But the point is that it's not my concern. My concern is do what Hashem wants me to do. So if I was alive at that time and had that option, then yeah.
So why didn't he do it? Why didn't he get married and have the kids? If he was a righteous person,
That was the lesson that he was taught. That's what he did. He eventually did it. He made a mistake. He was. So you have to understand. He was supposed to be Mashiach, and Hizkiyahu, but because of that, he wasn't. Yeah. Chazakim Bruchim, guys, and thank you for those joining us on Zoom.
Please, everybody say for bravo. Please, please.
Yes.